Hi knitting friends, I'm going to demonstrate today how to pick up around the neckline of a sweater. This happens to be a crew neck sweater, so a rounded neck in the front. Sometimes you'll encounter a little bit of shaping in the back. If that's the case with your design or your pattern that you've got, watch the whole video so you can see how I tackle these little stair-step shaping pieces in the front of the sweater here. It'll be the same in the back. If you just have a flat space in the back, that's where we're going to be starting today. So I'm going to hold the yarn for me in my left hand because I'm a continental knitter, and my knitting needle in my right hand. Just one needle is what I need at the moment, one side of my circular. What I'm going to do is locate the stitch that looks like a little letter V here, and I'm going to find the very first one next to my seam and stab my needle into it. Once I've stabbed my needle in, I'm going to wrap the yarn around my needle like I'm knitting and pull my new stitch up and out, pull it through. I'm going to repeat that in the next V. So you'll notice I'm not going into the bind off, I'm going below the bind off, just underneath it, into the stitches that look like little letter V's, the stitches that sit like this rather than the ones like this. So I'm picking up in between my fingers rather than this part here. Okay, and if you're an English style knitter, same thing, you're going to stab into your V, wrap the yarn around the needle like you're knitting, and bring the new stitch up and out. Stab in, wrap like a knit, bring the stitch up and out. You'll work that across the entire back of the sweater. I'm going to switch to continental because I'm a little quicker that way. And I want to get to the fun part when we start picking up across the neck shaping at the front of the sweater. But this is how to pick up across straight stitches that have been bound off. You're picking up one stitch for every stitch that you bound off. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I typically don't count my stitches when I'm picking up. I don't try to get whatever the pattern called for. I just make sure that I have the right ratio based on what I know is right here. So if I have one stitch here, I need one stitch above it, 1-to-1 ratio along the side or along a bound off edge. Okay, so now I've made it to my seam and I'm just going to ignore the tails. My next step is to pick up along this straight edge, a vertical edge here. And what I'm going to do there is go into the side of a stitch. So I'm no longer looking at these V's that I had across the back. Now I'm looking at the rows. So I'm picking up in 2 rows and then skipping a row. Picking up 1, 2, skip a row. 1, 2, skip a row. The reason we do that is to even out the tension. All right, and now here I've made it to the front neck portion where I've got these stair steps where you've bound off 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches. Whatever the case is, do not go in these big holes. Avoid the big holes that come between the stair steps. So you'll see this stair step here, there's a big hole right on top of my finger. Don't go into any big holes, it only makes them bigger. What we want to do is, just like we did on the back, go underneath the stitch that was bound off. So right here is my bound off stitch. I'm just going into the V right beneath that and I'm grabbing that. Then I'm jumping downstairs, down the stair step and grabbing the next V. So if you follow this column, here's the next one over at the next stair step. And then there's another V there. I don't pick this one up here on the side because that's the first one on the next stair down. So here, if I trace that down, it's right here, or I can follow this stitch and jump over one, but there is my V. So again, I'm not going into any big holes. I'm picking up in the V that's below the bind off edge. Here I'm going down here, skipping over one. So now this is interesting because this is where I reattached the yarn to work the 2 sides of the neck. So in this case, I do have to pick up in the V. So I'm going to grab this one because it looks the cleanest. And then I'm ready to get back on track under these center neck bind off stitches. picking up in the V's. This is a straight portion right here, so that's a lot like the back neck. I'm just picking up 1 stitch for every stitch without having to worry about stair steps and things like that. All right, and now here, of course, I'm approaching the first stair step after that portion. Here's the V that I'm in right now. I'm going to scooch over one and walk upstairs. And I'm picking up those 3 V's in a row. Then I'm scooting over to this column and upstairs again. And I'm going to pick up those two V's. Then I'm scooting over one, picking up that column. And now I'm back to this straight edge that we had worked on the other side too, where I picked up 2 and skip 1, 2 and skip 1. As you do that section, if you want to, you can keep track of how many stitches it was. In my case, it was 6 between the seam and the first stair step. And then try to match that number there so that you have symmetry. If you count your rows as you're knitting, ideally that should work out that if you pick up your 2 and skip a space, 2 and skip a space, it will work out automatically. But sometimes I do find, like in this case right here, I do have to squeeze that 6th row in. And then I'm back to the beginning where I started my pickup. I would place a marker here, join in the round, and work my neck as per the pattern. Happy knitting!